Hi everyone, today we're going to be talking about lesson 22, rounding and estimating. So let's look here at example number 1. Round 523 to the nearest hundred. So when I'm rounding, I'm going to look for the number closest to my original number. So if I'm rounding to the nearest hundred, I know I'm going to look at the hundreds place. And since 523 is in between 500 and 600, I know my options are to either round down to 500 or up to 600. So I'm going to look at the 2 right there. I'm going to look at the 2 to decide whether I round up or whether I round down. So if my number is between 0 and 4, I round down. If my number is 5 or more, I round up. Well, since I have a 2 in the tens place, it's between 0 and 4, so I'm going to round down to 500. If I was to estimate this, I would have 523 about here on the number line. I can see that that is much closer to 500 than 600. So 523 rounds to 500. And this is my answer. Now, all of this that I am circling here, this is what your problem should look like on your paper. You write the original number, you put the arrow to indicate your rounding, and then you write the number that you have rounded to. Okay? All right, let's move on to example 2. Okay, in a presidential election, hey, we have one of those coming up soon, each state is assigned a certain number of electoral votes. Hey, we talked about that too. Based on the 2000 census, the state of Florida was assigned 27 electoral votes, and the state of Texas was assigned 34 electoral votes. About how many electoral votes can a candidate win altogether in those states? Okay, here is your key word. Write it down. Whenever you see the word about equals round or estimate. Estimating and rounding are the same thing. So whenever you see the word about, you know you are going to estimate. So how do we solve this problem? I have 27 and I have 34. So we write 27, which will round up to 30. And I'm going to round to the nearest 10 because I only have a 2-digit number. I round to the largest place of my number. So since I have a 2-digit number, I round to the tens place. 34 also rounds to 30 because it's a 4 in the ones place. So we round down. And then it says about how many electoral votes can a candidate win altogether. Here's my key word. Altogether means I add. 30 plus 30 is 60. So I can get about 60 electoral votes. Now please make sure that in your answer you put the word about, because it isn't exactly 60, it is about 60. This is an estimate. So we need to make sure that in our answer we indicate that it is an estimate. Okay? All right, example 3. The average depth of the East China Sea is 620 feet. The average depth of the Yellow Sea is 144 feet. To the nearest 100 feet, about how many feet deeper is the average depth from the East China Sea? Okay, so first we have to identify our depths, 620 feet and 144 feet. So 620 feet, and of course I'm going to put my units, and 144 feet. Then it asks to the nearest 100 feet. So I'm going to round to the nearest 100. 620. 620 rounds down to 600 feet. 144 rounds down to 100 feet. So now I've done my estimation. And then it says how many feet deeper, how many more. This is telling me to subtract. And the East China Sea is about 500 feet deeper. Of course, you will write this off on a separate sentence. Okay, and so there's my answer. So first I took my original numbers and I wrote them down. I found out by reading the next sentence, okay, that I'm rounding to the nearest 100 feet. And then I kept reading the question to find out that I subtract. Follow each step carefully. Okay, example 4. A community theater group is giving 4 performances of a play. That sounds like fun. I love plays. 4 performances. The theater can seat 424 guests. All of the tickets for each performance have been sold. Estimate the total number of guests who plan to see the performance by rounding the number of guests for each performance to the nearest 100 before multiplying. So I have 424 guests. Rounding to the nearest 100 rounds down to 400 guests. I have 4 performances, so 400 guests at each of the 4 performances. I'm going to multiply, and there will be about 1,600 guests. Okay? All right, moving on. Last example, number 5. Number 5. Martin's car traveled 129 miles and used 4 gallons of gas. About how many miles did the car travel on each gallon? Well, when you're traveling in a car, you want to be pretty specific about how many miles per gallon you're getting so that you can accurately estimate how many miles you can travel on one tank or how many miles you might have left before you're going to run out of gas and be stuck. So while I could take this 129 and round it all the way down to 100, because I know that 100 is divisible by 4, I'm going to look for what we call a compatible number. A compatible number is a number close to the original number that is evenly divisible by the divisor. Okay, write that down. So in this problem, 4 is my divisor. But 129 is not evenly divisible by 4, so I want to look for a number close to 129 that is evenly divisible by 4. So let me erase all of this because I know you've already written it down. Let's do this. That'll be faster. Okay, so here's my divisor. Well, I know that 4 goes into 100 evenly, and I know that 4 goes into 28 evenly. So I'm going to change 129 to 128. And then I'm going to divide 128 divided by 4. 4 divided by 12 is 3. 3 times 4 is 12. I subtract, bring down the 8. 4 goes into 8 twice. 2 times 4 is 8. So my car will get about 32 miles per gallon. That's pretty good gas mileage. Okay, if I had done this by 100 and rounded all the way down to 100, 100 divided by 4 is only 25. Here, I'll actually solve it. Okay, so 25 miles per gallon versus 32 miles per gallon, that's a pretty big significant difference, which is why we used the compatible number of 128. Okay, so on to your lesson practice A through J, and we will talk about this tomorrow. Have a good night.